Hello everyone and welcome to my review for Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 171. Before I get into this week's review, I of course have to mention my subscriber goal for 2022, hitting 5,000 subscribers. Whenever we manage to do that, we're going to celebrate by doing a 24-hour long live stream that's going to be filled with a whole bunch of dumb shit, and hopefully I won't lose my mind in the process. But if you're interested in getting to see that, be sure to subscribe so we can reach that goal. With that out of the way, let's get on with the review. This fight between Megumi and Reggie has been turning out to be pretty good. Reggie's done very well for himself. I know when it was revealed that Remy had been lying to Megumi and had led him to Reggie, we kind of thought that maybe, Reggie was gonna get off screen or something. He was gonna be some kind of fodder. Mostly just because of how fucking stupid that suit is and how they were all underestimating Megumi and how Megumi, was showing a little bit of a cold-blooded streak. But no, we've been getting a fully fledged fight for a while now. It's been like a couple months, hasn't it? It's been like 2 months. It's been pretty good. So we get some interesting pieces of information on the functions of domain expansions, specifically due to Megumi's domain being incomplete. Reggie uses a secret technique called Hollow Wicker Basket, which was apparently a prototype for the new Shadow Style's simple domain. Does that mean this is like an even more ancient technique or something? How does Reggie know this? I suppose it's possible that Reggie was a revived sorcerer from the past, but I just have never gotten that vibe from him. I'm pretty certain Reggie's just a curse user from the modern time, so he's not someone that was given a technique in the Culling game. He was someone who was already a sorcerer and presumably got around a little bit. Maybe he learned how to perform Hollow Wicker Basket because he found some kind of instructions on how it worked. I don't know. I don't think that's quite how contract object reproduction works, because then it wouldn't be a contract. So I guess it's something that he actually did learn. But this functions basically just the same way Simple Domain does, with different visuals, like an actual visual of like a wicker basket. Now, it seems kind of strange that we have multiple different techniques that all pretty much do the same thing. Simple Domain, Falling Blossom Emotion, and now Hollow Wicker Basket. The only one that kind of has any sort of explicit differences is Falling Blossom Emotion. I think the reason that Gege is doing all of these different techniques that pretty much do the same thing is just so that there's a little bit more diversity when it comes to anti-domain techniques. It would make sense that more people than just the ones behind the new Shadow Style would make it, although this is technically part of the new Shadow Style. And it's not clear why this is only a prototype. Like, what's the difference between this and normal Simple Domain? Maybe it doesn't have the same versatility as Simple Domain, like being able to use it for a counter, though you can also do that with Falling Blossom Emotion. I assume this is just so that, we don't always just have people pulling out Simple Domain. It's like how domain expansions are all kind of unique. Domain expansions are never the same thing. That's probably kind of what Gege is going for with this. But this technique doesn't do anything. Do you know why? It's meant to nullify sure-hit attacks. Because Megumi does not have a completed barrier for his domain expansion, he doesn't have sure-hit attacks. So he just has an increase to his power. So you can dodge his attacks, you can block them, but he's got a whole hell of a lot more power than he did prior to going into his domain expansion. So while for other people that have a complete domain in a lot of circumstances, it's basically just a win move, for Megumi it's more of like a power boost for when he's fighting against someone that he doesn't have enough power to defeat, goes into domain expansion, gets an amp, is now strong enough to beat them. He's not quite strong enough to just flat out beat Reggie immediately, but he does beat his ass in this chapter. Reggie gets a very thorough ass beating in this chapter. And it's in large part because Chimera Shadow Garden's incomplete. It's interesting to see that there are actual benefits to having an incomplete domain expansion Um, Basically, in exchange for it not being as powerful as a fully fledged domain, it's not really affected by anti-domain techniques. So you just get a power boost instead of a win button. But the power boost is still pretty significant. So it's kind of a little bit of a surprise, but not really in hindsight, that even an incomplete domain has kind of significant benefits. Because that's just how Jujutsu sorcery works. There's pros and cons to everything. And that's part of what makes the power system so enjoyable. Now, much like Reggie reading off receipts, I'm going to read off my list of patrons to give them a little shout out. Special thanks to Neo, Dijon Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, K-God, Chris Redfield, Rat, Ryzen 4K, Artist, Mac Campaign, Wave of Manga, Chuck's Feed and Seed, Jakester Easy, and Play Free Labs. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get access to reviews for The Boxer, or, coming very soon, reviews for One Piece, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. I actually plan on starting the One Piece reviews with this week's chapter, so coming very soon. Anyway, let's get back to the review. Now, Reggie makes an interesting realization about Megumi's domain. Pretty much the entire floor of it, the entire ground, is coated within Megumi's shadow, and Megumi's shadow is able to have things enter into it. I guess you can get sucked into his shadow. And Reggie thought about how Megumi uses his shadow to store items such as his weapon, and he thought, why do you seem to keep such a limited inventory? Is it because you only have a set amount of stuff that you can carry? Or is it because you take on the weight of the objects? Equipment burden, the bane of everyone's existence. So he decides to use his contracts and summon 3 cars to drop into the shadow. So now Megumi has 2.4 tons of weight bearing down on him. He's somehow surviving this, clearly through enhancing his own body with cursed energy, but it's taking a fairly significant toll on him. Like, the fucking ground is quaking underneath him just because of how heavy he is right now. So either he releases his technique and, throws out the cars, or he, dies because he gets crushed by the weight that's already in there eventually, or Reggie keeps dropping in more cars until the weight is so great that he just gets smushed. Also, a thing of note is that Megumi's hair has been pushed down, which we, never see happening, and he kind of looks a lot like Toji with his hair like that. Just kind of neat. However, Megumi has a counter of his own. Because they're in his domain, his shadows are covering every surface in the room, including the ceiling. So he drops Max Elephant on top of Reggie. I don't know how heavy an elephant is, but, definitely several tons. So now they are in a weight-bearing competition to see who will be the first to collapse under the weight being put upon them. Pretty interesting. Seems kind of like a game of chicken or something. I assume if Megumi releases his technique, that's how he would get out of it. But if Megumi dies, Max Elephant would go away and then Reggie would be freed. So, if he crushes Reggie, he'll release his technique and then not be crushed anymore. But if he dies, then Reggie gets out. So that seems to kind of be the way out for either of them. Now, obviously, Megumi is going to win, and it's a pretty decent possibility that something interrupts this, because you always have to take that into consideration. But I'm quite excited to see how this fight's going to turn out. Once again, it ended up being way better than I expected, and the art this chapter is really good. I think Gege had a really, really big increase in art quality after the hiatus, and it's just been showing lately. The art in a lot of the recent chapters, especially this one, has just been outstanding. So, props to Gege for that one. And I assume having the week off because of Shonen Jump being on break was also a big help to that as well. So, hopefully we'll be seeing the conclusion of this fight next week, and then I imagine we will be getting into what's going on with Hikari and Panda in Tokyo Colony number 2. With that, that's all I've got to say for this week's review. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Jujutsu Kaisen chapter reactions and reviews every week. If you enjoy discussing Jujutsu Kaisen with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce in this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have linked to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.